Okay, I think we'll get going. Welcome, everyone. My name is Noorez Khamis, and I'm here with Eric Overfield, my business partner, and we're here to talk about Dataverse for Teams. Now, you guys are here for SQL, so you're expecting a lot of data and insights and analytics and Azure stuff, but here it's kind of a more of a modern workplace type of track. However, we are talking about data because Dataverse is all about data. And but Dataverse is a type of database that's accessible to not only IT pros and SQL Server admins and Azure SQL experts, Oracle experts. It's available to everybody for the citizen developer, right? And we're now, Microsoft with Dataverse is bringing data accessibility of creating tables and relationships and choices and all of the cool stuff available to the subject matter expert or power user. So that's what Dataverse is all about. Today we're doing a demo for Dataverse for Microsoft Teams, and the reason we chose this one is just to show everybody in the room that this tooling is accessible to everyone with no extra licensing. How many people are using Microsoft Teams? So the majority of the room here, right? So if you're using Microsoft Teams, you can create your own apps and databases all within Teams, and you might not even know that you could do this. So hopefully after this session, you will kind of learn how to do it.
Good. So that's on, right? Yeah, quick intro though. So who we are. So my name is Eric Overfield, CPO of Career Sparks and Pixel Mill, MVP, RD, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, my name is Noorez Khamis. Everybody calls me Rez. Eric is out of our California office, and I'm out of our Toronto office. So I'm also an MVP, and I'm CTO. So.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll quit the other quick intros out of the way so we can. They'll flip eventually, right? There we go. So big thanks to the sponsors, of course. They are the ones that make these kind of community events possible. So please do thank them when you're walking around and whatnot. We're happy to be a sponsor as well. Huge community support, of course. Again, let's give thanks to them all. I mean, this is how these events are possible, and it's so nice to see people again. Love being in person, so thank you all for joining us. If you want to learn more about CareerSpark, we provide services around the Microsoft 365 space, the Power Apps, Power Platform space, as well as the secure cloud, based primarily out of Toronto, and then we also have a U.S. office as well. We also do a lot of events. If you want to learn more about the Power Platform and how it connects to Dataverse as well, we have a lot of events that are just free and open to the community as well. You can learn about that at careerspark.com/events. We do all sorts of fun things. And again, it's all available for free. It's our opportunity to continue to give back and help promote what's going on out in the technology world.
Yep. Yesterday we actually ran an event here. I think some of the folks here were there. It's called Power of the Cloud, and it was another free event where we had 3 tracks of different types of sessions. So hopefully you guys can stay up to date with our events list, and you guys can get access to more events than just what you see here, right? So.
And that was all recorded, right? So all of those recordings are available?
Yeah, I don't know if the recordings are going to be available,
okay.
but
right.
we're going to try our best. We'll see.
And then we're hiring as well. If you're looking for a new opportunity, whatnot, please come and find us. Careerspark.com/careers, or Rez and I'll be around afterwards during lunch. We'd love to talk to you. That's it, right? Let's dive right in. I want to hear about all the good stuff.
Get right into it. Okay, so what Microsoft Teams is all about, you might know it as a calling platform, as a chatting platform, as a group management platform, but it is also a platform for teamwork. It's a platform for building your apps. It's a platform for integration with your Azure systems, your cloud-based, your on-premises systems. It's more than just a place for callings, meetings, and chat. And think about it from a business perspective when you're using Teams. Wouldn't it be nice if you had everything within the context of your daily work? Because how many people are in meetings for more than 50% of the day? Feels like it, right? So, so the second you switch contacts and contacts, go to a different application, go to a different database, go to a different app, that takes seconds, minutes, turns into hours in the year of context switching. So that's where Microsoft Teams comes in. We help organizations build all these apps within Teams, whether it's custom developed apps or apps built on the Power Platform, and that's what we're going to show you today. So we are going to show you how we're going to build an app in Teams using the Power Platform, using many of these Power Platform-like technologies. Okay. So anybody familiar not familiar with the Power Platform? Who has not played around with the Power Platform? Oh, looks like everybody is. That's awesome. Okay. So for those familiar with the Power Platform, we actually have Power Virtual Agents. We've got Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, Power Pages. That's a new one that just was announced about a few weeks ago, and it came into general availability last week at Ignite, if anybody followed Ignite. And then we got Power BI, and then underneath we have the Common Data Services. We got, which is now called Microsoft Dataverse, where the name came from CDS. Any old school Dynamics developers here? Dynamics people? Okay. So Dynamics used to be it used to be run under a cloud-based database called Common Data Service. So what Microsoft did was rename that to Dataverse and expose it to the rest of the world to start using. Okay, and we've got connectors and AI builders. So all the AI stuff you guys are probably learning today about. Now, Dataverse for Teams kind of fits on this kind of section that you guys see here. So you're able to create chatbots in Power Virtual Agents. You're able to create apps. You're able to create workflows and automation with Power Automate. And then you're able to connect that Dataverse for Teams database, right? And then you're able to connect to other data sources as well through those data connectors. So that's kind of what Dataverse for Teams is all about, and the areas in the Power Platforms it covers. Now, there's a lot of ways to develop your apps for Microsoft Teams. There's already ready-made apps, like all the ones at the top that you're used to, SharePoint and PowerPoint and Excel and Access, you name it. There at the bottom, you could actually bring in developers to build full custom solutions. So Eric actually is Chief Product Officer of one of our companies called CloudSpark. We're building an app called EXP, the Employee Experience Platform, and that app fits under those full code custom solutions where we're building a mini HRIS. So if you're a startup company and you need to request time off, you don't want to spend like $150, $200 per user on like a Workday or a Bamboo HR or Ultipro. You guys probably are using all these HR systems at your work, right? So we've built an app that you just install as an app, and it's in Microsoft Teams. So that's kind of an example of our full code custom solutions. Today, we're really here focusing on this low code area, if I can point here, right? So this low code, this middle section here, and that middle section is all about the Power Platform. And it's really interesting how easy it is for us to build apps in that middle layer. And Microsoft wants everybody to know that building apps is not just a developer kind of thing anymore. The end user, the power user, the citizen integrator, the subject matter expert can now build their own apps. Now, Microsoft is giving it for free with anybody who has a Microsoft Teams license, but of course, there is fine print, right? They're not going to give everything for free. They have they want to encourage people to use the app ecosystem within Dataverse for Teams. However, once you start becoming serious from it, and like most of you guys are all about data, so you're dealing with millions and millions of records, so they're going to cap you. So it's kind of a simplistic apps you're creating for everyday use, but as soon as you want to go to the full-blown version of Dataverse, then they're going to start charging you extra money. So this is really the fine print. So it comes with a light version of Microsoft Dataverse. So by a light version, there's a capacity that you have to stay within. That's 2 gigabytes. It also, they limit the number of environments you can create it. So a lot of you guys said you're already familiar with Power Platform. So you know when you create your Power Apps, your model driven, your Canvas apps, your Power Automate, you create them in an environment. So each time you create a environment or a team, you're in effect, and an app in that team, you're in effect creating an environment. So they're going to limit you to the number of apps you can create and environments you can create. If you delete your Microsoft team, so how many people have like an IT departmental Microsoft team, right? Like they collaborate and chat. Most people do, right? So if you're going to create your app within a team, if you go and delete that team, your app's gone. So this is how they get you, right? So they want you to stay within Teams and you can't move it out. If you want to move it out, you could do that, but you got to pay them extra licensing fees, okay? It only works within the Teams web app and mobile platforms. So again, If you want to move it out of that, if you want to expose it on your public website, if you want to embed it somewhere else in your SharePoint, somewhere else, then you actually have to pay the full-blown version of the app ecosystem. Guest users can run Dataverse for Teams apps, but they can't install, create, or edit them. So we all have Microsoft Teams. We're inviting our guest users to it. So let's say that there's a ticketing system you want to create. You have people from that you're a consultant. You have your clients added to that ticketing system. You invite them to the team. They could use the app, no problem, but they just can't install it. They can't create it. They can't edit the app themselves as a maker. Okay. You can upgrade your environment to a fully fledged environment as well. So again, that's a cost. So if you want to take it out of Microsoft Teams, you don't have access to the premium connectors. So what are the premium connectors? So there's standard connectors and premium connectors. So you could connect to things like your email, SharePoint, and send a Teams message. And there's hundreds of different connectors. We just did a session yesterday which talked about those. But when you want to go to SAP or Oracle or your SQL Server or your Azure environment, those are considered premium connectors. So that's where you have to upgrade to a fully fledged. There's a capacity of 1 million records. They're constantly changing this. So there's probably a link here which will probably tell you the most latest. But you can only have 1 million records, but 1 million records is quite a bit, right? So you guys are all data people. So if we're creating a small ticketing system, after you get to the million records, then you have to upgrade to a fully fledged environment or archive the data, right? So, so when you create a Teams app, then a Dataverse environment is created in the back end. But if you guys are familiar with the Power Platform Admin Center on the back end, there's an environment management capability. You'll just see under the environment that this environment is specific to this team, okay? There's 2 gigabytes maximum. Really, it's about 1.5 because there's setup that uses about 500. You could build relationships and tables, like everything that you guys are seeing today. And it's done in a manner that's really, really easy for the end user, okay? And it doesn't have some of the advanced data type that you guys are all used to in the SQL Server, but it has most of the majority of the ones that we need as regular citizen developers. So that's really what Dataverse for Teams, and those are kind of the restrictions that Microsoft puts on you for the free version. So let's talk about Dataverse. And these are probably screens that you guys are seeing today, just in different tools. So you think about it like a Teams catered environment for creating data, and it's based on Dynamics 365 on the Power Platform. So what you're looking at here is just a table, right? A table. We've got our name column, approver column, asset category, comment, etc. These, when you're dealing with a database, it's basically rows and columns. So what they're doing that is making it accessible to a user. So an end user knows how to use Excel. Everybody uses Excel. So they create a worksheet. It has columns and rows. So they're exposing that to the end user. So we're asking them to create those columns, and we're asking them to name the columns and give them a data type. And then there's an interface for showing it, right? So here's the data types that Teams supports when you're creating Dataverse for Teams apps. So text, email, URL, phone, auto number, date, decimal, lookup, choice, yes or no. When you create a lookup column, you're just looking up from another table. So in the back end to the end user, it's just a lookup. But for all us old school tech geeks, we're creating a relationship with another table, but a one to many, many to many, many to one relationship. They don't need to know that. They just need to know that it's a lookup, right? So they're trying to make it really easy to the end user. Like if you're creating an app and you're an end user, you're not an IT person, like is there any data type that you would need aside from these? No, right? So that's what Microsoft has done. And then you're able to create relationships, just like I said earlier. So it's just like a relational database. I don't know how many customers Eric and I have gone to, and they've tried to create this app within SharePoint, and then you got lookup to lookup to lookup, and then it's a nightmare trying to get them out of that because they shouldn't have created that app within SharePoint. So this is the tool that people should use, those end users and those citizen developers, when they're building apps, because they could create real relationships and have multiple tables, and it's really easy to navigate through, right? So, and it's really easy to create those relationships.
Excellent. Okay, so I really want to get to the demo myself, and I know a lot of you already have experience with the Power Platform, but I do want to quickly go over Power Apps, Power Automate, and then Power Virtual Agents, just so we can ground set. Some of you might have been a little more shy. So starting with Power Apps, because again, this demo that we're going to look at is going to go through all this cool stuff. You'll see it live in action. And Power Apps is all about building these no code or low code applications, business line applications. Really a lot of power there. And in Teams, there's App Studio, which helps us build these. Now you can build them through the web app as well, but Teams offers that great in the flow of actual people's work to be able to create these Power Apps. The thing that I think about that Power Apps is fun to think about is how it's sort of like PowerPoint, where you're able to drag components onto a screen and make an app out of it. But if you're going to go into the code, a lot of the code comes from the Excel macro days, because that's the people that built it. That's the language effectively that's going on behind the scenes. And also, it's natively responsive. It natively can work in different devices and in different viewports, and that's pretty cool. The amount of LOBs that you can create with Power Apps from that low code or no code solution is really mind boggling. And I mean, there are full careers that are being built right now around just building Power Apps. So great interface to be able to build the apps. Let's look then at quickly at Power Automate. Power Automate is all about building those no code or low code workflows within the ecosystem, within the Microsoft ecosystem. And it is really powerful, I believe. I truly believe it's powerful. We can build all of these really cool things with it. If you already have that M65 license, effectively it's free, which is great. Not for everything, because there are these premium connectors. There's all these connectors you might need to connect to a lot of other stuff, including a lot of the Dataverse stuff, isn't it? Yeah. So it can get a little more expensive on some of those connectors, but it's still pretty easy to set up and very useful. A lot of common flows that people are building in Power Automate with things that be around document approvals or email processing, auto posting things to Teams, back to office approval workflows. A lot of things that would help me do my job. Maybe I want to get notified every time an email comes in from my boss. I want to be pinged in Teams because that's where I'm living. Yes, Power Automate can do that, and all your users can be setting up all these personal things. But of course, we can extend it beyond just the me. Who should be using this to me are the power users, the end users, the people that are creating and utilizing these applications and whatnot. There's a whole nother Azure driven service that's just like Power Automate for the business, let's say, called Logic Apps. We're not going to talk about that at all, but there, I see Power Automate being great for those no code, low code solutions where you've got a lot of end users who are attempting to create some sort of workflow to help their team, their department, their group be able to build these LOBs. Something that is important though are the flows within Power Automate. They're owned by somebody. That's interesting. It means you always want to make sure you have another owner, because if the owner leaves, your flow kind of disappears, or it's a lot more challenging to work with. What's really nice also about Power Automate are all the ways we can create these flows. There's the web-based designer, which is the most strong. It's the most powerful for sure, but there's a mobile app to help you with this. Visio can do it. There's a Teams app, which we'll get to shortly here. And you can also build your flows directly in Power Apps, which is well, it's a well-known secret that Power Automate used to be called Flow came out of Power Apps. When Microsoft built Power Apps, they decided to build a workflow engine. They built it within Power Apps, and they said, wait, we should take this out. This is a whole another cool application. But you can still build the flows for Power App directly in Power Apps if you so chose to. And then now Power Automate for Teams is a newer Teams app. It's cool. So we're all using Teams like throughout the day. Why not have more of our apps live within Teams? And that's the idea here of Power Automate Teams. It's to help you have a simplistic interface to your flows directly embedded within Teams. It's not nearly as powerful as the full web interface or some of the other components, but it's a great place to see your flows and to start new flows by working with the templates. And a flow that you build in the Power Automate for Teams is available within Power Automate. So it's not stuck to just Teams, but it's something that you can just easily within the flow of work go and see a flow, manipulate the flow, work with it a little bit, see what's going on in it. Really useful. And then creating flows is easy. I don't know how else to put it. There are hundreds of templates that Microsoft has already built for us to help us get started. when I first, kind of like in a Power App, but Power Apps has templates as well. But Power Automate, when you look at a blank canvas, it's a little intimidating, even when I've built too many flows to count, because you just got to think like, where do I start? What's that connector called again? What's the trigger call to make the flow happen? There are so many templates available to help you say, well, let's go ahead and process the data that comes in from a Microsoft form, and let's go ahead and dump it into Dataverse. Like, there are templates for this that helps you get started, because the whole process is built. You just do the hooks. You tell it what form you're linking to, what data source you're linking to. Maybe you want it to be sent to a Teams channel or an email as well. All that stuff is mostly done for you. It's also a great way to learn, because then you could create a flow based on one of the templates, look at how it's built and go, oh, okay, cool. I'll just do that. I'm going to copy that into my personal flow. And then last but not least, I think we're doing good on time, right? You're going to have enough time for your demo?
Yeah.
Our Power, the Power Virtual Agents. Okay, now this one it's cool. It's the new kid on the block. As we said, it was just more recently announced, but this one is fascinating. The virtual agents are helping us provide 24/7 ability to help work get done within our organization. I'm thinking here things like IT help desk, these HR self-service, onboarding help, etc. Without really any code, I got to say it's more no code rather than low code, you can build a very sophisticated AI-driven chatbot that has this nice, pretty sophisticated graphical user interface for your virtual agent creator, who probably anyone in this room could really easily create. You create a basically this graphical flow, you're seeing it on the right, of how the chatbot should work. But you don't have to really train it too much. It's actually really good at creating the, I just blanked on the word, they are called topics, to be able to help the chatbot know as a conversation is being started in natural language by the end user, what is the intent of that topic, so that it can then process some sort of flow, give them information, maybe it's going to ask them for more data, etc. But things like IT help desk and pointing them back to people, maybe you already have an FAQ. This is like a great evolution of the FAQ bot. If you have data somewhere already stored, you have questions and answers, that you can point the virtual agents to that, and it can automatically create a bunch of topics based on that. We showed a demo yesterday. I don't think we're going to show it today, but we basically went out to a public facing site and said, hey, virtual agent, there's some stuff here, go figure it out. And it processed the data off of a public website and was able to determine, we think this is, I think virtual agents thinks that these are questions and these are answers. These are topics and these are the answer or the response for it. That's impressive. And with the natural language learning, it automatically can learn, because, Rez and I might ask the same question in a different way. How much time off do I have today? Or how much time off have I earned? Or, how much PTO have I earned over the last year? Those would be different ways of asking a question that these bots can be trained pretty easily with no code and almost seamless setup. Just creating these in Azure directly can be really, really challenging. But even better is the virtual agents for teams. It's easily to build these and then deploy them into teams, really where just power users, end users, can build these bots, can configure them, can even see how and test the conversations to make them all happen so that they can debug them as well. This one is cool. Highly recommend everyone dig into this more, because it's new. The other ones I think you've probably heard of, but this one's new. We can extend that, though, because the virtual agents are able to then communicate into Power Automate as well. So as someone might start a chat request within a virtual agent, as you've configured the virtual agent based on a given topic, it can automatically go and then trigger Power Automate flow as well as then connect to Dataverse and store that data, manipulate that data, grab that data, work with the data and whatnot. And even better yet, but kind of obvious, but better yet, is the chatbot, this virtual agent, it knows who you are. So it can provide things in context of you as well. Again, really with either no code or extremely low code opportunities. So I think with that, I think we're just going to spend the rest of the time on demo, right?
Yep.
We doing good on time?
Yep. We're
Maybe
doing
about
good
a half hour?
Yep. Perfect.
Okay, good.
Do the demo.
Oh, and by all means, if you have questions, you should do not be shy, please. Rez and I would be happy to do what we can throughout the conversation here.
Get the screen working. Why it's saying that? There, can we see? Okay, perfect. I'm going to give this a little bit of refresh. So Dataverse for Teams is in effect as part of a Power App, as part of the Power Platform. So that's really how you get to it. So when you go to your Microsoft Teams, which pretty much looks like this, the first place you're going to go to get going is on the bottom left here in the app section. Okay, in that app section, for the two things we're going to demonstrate today, you need two apps. Now, if you're working for a big company, they might have blocked these apps, but for the most part, they've actually enabled, most companies have enabled it. And because it's free for the licensing anyhow, as long as you have Microsoft Teams. So when you guys get time, log into your Teams and see if you can find that app. So the apps we're looking for are Power Apps. So here, if you just type that in here, here's the Power Apps. You just click on it and you hit, mine's already installed. There'll be an add button. Okay, when you add it, it'll show up on your left-hand bar right here as Power Apps. And you just right-click, and I like to pin it so it stays there. It remembers that it's there, right? So I don't have to keep on finding it in this little ellipse here. The other app that's important for the chatbots is the Power Virtual Agents app. So you just got to search on Power Virtual Agents and click on that same thing, and then add it, and then pin it. Okay, those are the two apps we're going to be using today. But let's start with Power Apps first. So when you're creating a Power App in Teams, so I'm like right now we're staying within Teams because it's free. You don't have to pay any extra licensing, but you can create other types of apps if they don't connect to premium connectors and do this all outside. Everything that I'm showing you is outside of Teams. So Eric showed a creospark.com/events URL. We do an app in a day every Wednesday. We do Power Virtual Agents in a day. So you're actually doing a lab and a workshop. You learn it every first or second Wednesday, and then we do a Power RPA in a day, is Power Automate Desktop Flows. So robotics process automation, that's another type of Power Automate. So highly advised if you guys want to learn all these technologies, actually go onto our website, sign up for them, take a day, and actually do a little course because it's really hot. It's a really hot on the market, everything with respect to the Power Platform right now. That's why we're having a hard time finding individuals. So when you open up these Power Apps interface, if you're going to start with an app, all you do is you press the new app button. Now, because it's tied to Microsoft Teams, the first thing it's going to do is ask you what team do you want to create it in. Here I have two teams. Okay, so that's how they get you. You're allowed to create this app for free, but you have to stay in Teams, right? So and they understand that you can create some complex apps, but like from an enterprise application perspective, at some point you're probably going to need to take it out of Teams and have it as its own standalone app. And that's what Microsoft is banking, that you'll pay the extra licensing costs for when it's outside of Teams. Okay. Don't tell anybody I told you that, but that's what they're going to do. Okay. So that's how you create an app. So I have already created some apps. So I'm going to quickly go to this build section, and I have some apps that I've created. So the scenario that I created just last night was a COVID FAQ site. Okay, so the business scenario is this: I'm an employee, I'm an HR department, right, at a company, and I want an area in my Teams environment where anybody can go to this team to get some FAQs about COVID. So that's our scenario. Now, I want to give an app where people can go and look at the question and answer question license. You could use. Yeah, so Power BI Pro has nothing to do with what I'm showing today. Power BI is a separate separate service in the Power Platform. So Power BI has its own. If you have Power BI Pro, you can do all your data analytics, such as the stuff they're showing today. But Power Apps, as long as you have a Microsoft 365 license, anybody can create a Power App. So you'll be able to see Power Apps. You'll be able to do it. However, you're only limited to standard connectors. I don't know if you remember that slide where I said standard. So if you're connecting to SharePoint or an email or an Excel sheet or your Teams, those are all seeded. That's what they call them. It's free. But let's say you want to connect to SAP or Oracle or your ERP or your CRM, then that's when Microsoft says, hey, this is premium functionality. I want you to pay me on a per user per month that's using it, per user per app per month, or you could Azure consumption based. Okay, So again, they're going to give you a little bit, but then they're going to suck you into as soon as you start loving it, right? So to pay more. Okay. So what you see here is that I've created this. So the scenario again was that COVID FAQ. I'm HR. I just want to create an app where people can go find this information, right? It could be in the form of a chatbot where the person just asks the question, something about COVID, and the chatbot answers back automatically. The other scenario might be an app where they can go and inquire or request some more information on the policy or the question we have. So that's the scenario we're doing today. So the first thing I wanted to show you was where I decided to start was that I wanted to create a table in my database where I would store this information. Okay? So from an end user perspective, all I did, after I created the app, I went to the interface, and on the left-hand side, this is where it says all my options, all the stuff in my app, all apps. So these are my Power Apps, and there's a type of Power App that you're natively creating here called a Canvas-based Power App, and that's what we're going to create. This is our chatbots right here. So this is our Power Virtual Agent chatbots. This is any Power Automate flows are stored here that are related to my app. Here's my tables, my database. Like from an end user perspective in Excel, they create tables. That's why they named it tables. It used to be called entities, and nobody understood what that means, so they named it to tables. And then this is other stuff. So right away there, the first thing I wanted to do was create a table. So in order to create a table, it's really easy. So I'll show you this table in a second. Actually, let me just show it now. So here's a table, right? And really easy to create a table. So it shows me, look, it's even giving me a tour. So from an end user, they're trying to make it really simple to use. So I'm not going to go through the tour. I'll do it myself. So all I'm doing is I have my question, right? And then I've got my answer. So here's some default columns that Microsoft is giving you as part of your table. The things like a created on, they've got a, let me just show 4 more. They've got a when it was modified by, when it was modified by, or who was modified by, and when it was modified on, and who the owner of it, right? So these are default columns that they're giving you, and then there's custom ones. So the question one is one that I created, right? So let's just see. How come it's not showing? I gotta do it. Good hell, it's not showing it. Okay, there it goes. Okay, so this is I basically created 2 columns here. I created the question column and the answer column. Okay, so the questions are, and all I did was go to this public website right here. And I just Googled it. Give me some COVID FAQs. So this CDC website came up, and there was some CDC answers questions that are here. So it's just a URL that I have here. So here, if I go back to the Power App, I just copied and pasted 3 of them for now. And it was really easy to create a column. All you got to do is press the plus button. You give it the name. You give it a description. What's the data type? You saw in the first. These are the data types. They made it really easy for end user. They don't have to know varchar or all the nchar and all the old school DBA type of stuff. They know I want to add a piece of text. They know Excel, right? So I want to add a piece of text. Is it a plain text? Is it a text area? Is it a rich text, right? So you get all these data types that Microsoft's giving you as part of this one. There's actually the full-blown version of Dataverse has dozens more complex data types than this that you guys are all used to on SQL Server and everything like that. Then we got numbers here, whole number, decimal, float. So these are the ones, like even an end user probably wouldn't know some of those. For a date and time, do we want date and time or just date only? Do we want to look up from another table? Do we want a choice, right? Or a yes, no, right? Currency, auto number, a file. So you can add your files and images here, and then a formula. Okay. So those are data types, and then the format. The cool thing about Dataverse is that you don't have to. These formats are automatically. It won't let you add data to the table unless it's the right format. So this is enforcing data consistency, right? So email has to be in the right format, phone number. So it's from the end user, it makes it a lot easier. It makes your data very consistent. Okay, so there's some formula ones. So all I did was create text for question and answer. And to populate it, I populated the data, copy pasted in from here. Really, really simple. Okay, so so this is the table that I created. If you want to create a new table or a new relationship, you could do your relationships from here, view, and then you can import your data or export your data. and as a solution as well. You can manage the permissions, who has it. You can see your relationships and all of that. So this is pretty much the data portion of why I'm here at SQL Toronto today. SQL. Okay. So that's really easy, right? Is it easy to create a table from an end user perspective? So there we go. So in this case, now what I wanted to do was let's do something with this data. I want to show this data to the end user. So the next thing I did was I'm going to create an app. Okay. So I went to the apps and I just said all I want to do is create a new Canvas app. You get to choose. Do you want it to look good on a phone or a tablet or a browser? Tablet is a browser, right? Right. So I chose tablet, and all it did was create this app for me. And I'm going to guide you through this app designer interface. So this is the designer interface for Power Apps. And if you guys have ever created Power Apps before, it's the exact same thing. So if you know how to do Canvas Power Apps, it's really easy. And the cool thing, the first thing it does, it asks me, do I want to connect to data? And all I did was point it to that database, and it drew out a lot of the screens I needed. So it was able to create a gallery. And of course, it's going to take a little bit of time pulling up. But it created the gallery and basically showed me a listing of all those FAQs. And I just basically created 2 more screens. It's taken a second. Should I refresh it or wait? What do you guys think? The network slow? Okay. Okay, I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to take a risk. You wouldn't expect the connection to be slow here, right? And this time I'm going to wait and I'm going to talk about it. So I'll give you a tour while this is running. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So over here, if you've never created an app, this is the tree view on the left-hand side where you're going to create your different screens. So what you see is I've created 2 screens here, a list screen and a display screen. Okay. And I can add new screens right at that new screen button at the top here, right? And then on the left-hand side, you can see your data sources, and that would be the Dataverse tables that we just created, right? So that's a left-hand pane, and then you could add images and your Power Automate flows. There's a little image there where it shows the Power Automate flows. So if you have a button that's going to invoke a workflow, you can do that from there on that left-hand pane. And then this is the different screens in my screen. I've called this one my list screen because it's a list of the questions. And on the right-hand side, everything is contextual. As I click on the items, this changes on the right-hand side, right? So the properties advanced. So if I was to click on a button as an example here, so what happens when somebody clicks on this button here? How do I want it to look? You know, what icon am I using? And what did I just do? Clicked on something else. Okay. The mouse keeps on falling. Okay, so you see what icon I want, you know, what's to display, what color I want, what background. So as I click on stuff, and under the events, what happens when I click on it? And from an end user perspective, it's really simple. So you could either do it from this formula bar here at the top. So let me just zoom in here. This formula bar, or you can go to advanced here. But what I'm doing on this formula bar, I'm saying when somebody clicks on this button, if you know Excel, then you can build your own apps. All I'm doing is navigating to the display screen. That's the name of it. That's all I did, right? Okay, so this is just pointing to, this is called a gallery, and all you're doing is pointing to a table. Sorry, keeps on falling my mouse. Okay, so the data here, this gallery here of the things that are in this gallery are pointing to the list, the items that are in the COVID FAQs table that I just created. And that automatically shows pretty much everything here. And if I want things to show different things, I just got to click on each one. So when you're working with a gallery, all you're doing is editing the first one. So when you edit this first one, the rest of them change. So let me just highlight the first one. Oops, lost my mouse. Here we go. This thing is the first item in the gallery. So if I edit that first item, everything else is going to do it. So if I wanted to, drag a new label here as an example, I would just put it right here, and notice that it automatically took a stab at what data I want to populate it at, and it edited the rest of them. Really, really simple to start creating your app. And if you look at the text that it's displaying in it, it took a stab at, what am I looking at? This item dot created on. So that's a column in our table called created on, right? Now, the cool thing about Power Apps is when you press the Alt button, you can actually run it. So if I press Alt right now, in my designing interface, I'm actually running this. So I created another screen, which is showing the data, the actual data instead of a list. So here's the title of it, right? So if I click on this item, it says template gallery list. So under that, if I go back to the tree view here, this is the tree view. And in that template gallery list, so this is the list, on the display screen, I want to show the one that is selected, and the column that is selected is called question. Really, really simple, right? So if I wanted to add, this one is the description. So this one would be the one that's selected. I'm displaying the answer. Really, really simple to create a question. You could definitely link to anything you want and store the data in your tables. Let's say, let's for argument's sake, that as part of, do I need a COVID-19 vaccine booster? And there was another little piece of text that say here, see the analytics on the booster, right? You can have that as a link to the Power BI report, and that shows up in the Power BI app in Teams. We're not covering that in this session, but you could definitely do that. But you could also embed Power BI within Power Apps, okay? So if right now what I'm showing you is Dataverse, like the light version of it, and you're basically tied to the database that they're giving you, so those tables, right? So if you wanted to integrate with something else, that's when they're going to get you to do a premium connection. But if you're asking me, is it possible? Yes, it is. You just have to pay licensing to use it. So this one, they're saying, just use the data that you're creating the tables with. You can have another flow, as an example, that goes and integrates with this data and pulls the data in from a different data source into the tables that you create here. Okay? But if you want to go into like the best practices in architecture, if in that case, I would possibly not create it as a Dataverse for Teams, because that's a more complex example where you're getting enterprise data and pulling it in here. This is more, but it's definitely feasible for things that your organization has paid license for already. So, that makes sense? Okay. So it shows you how easy it is to show the data from the tables in anywhere you want. So, and then you have basically, if you know Excel, then you could do stuff. So here's a button as an example. In this button, the use case that I have is, I need clarification. Somebody's saying, I need clarification. So all I want to do is, just as an example, is invoke a Power Automate flow that sends a message to a team that says, Joe Schmo has questions on this particular topic. So it's let HR know. So what I've done behind the scenes, I've created a Power Automate flow. And so on select, so we're going to go to on select here. And this is the flow name, send COVID Teams message. And it's basically passing in the user's name and then needs clarification on the question. It's a really, really easy formula that anybody who knows Excel can do. So the user's name, so this is like you'll get used to it if you do start doing formulas. That's how you get the user. And you just press dot, and it actually, and I'll show you that. So I'll show you that as you're clicking on stuff, it knows all this stuff. It makes it really easy to use formulas. So do I want email? Do I want full name? Do I want image? Right? So it's really, really focused and trying to make it really easy for the end user to build apps. So as you click on the dot, you're able to get the information. So that's really what that flow does. And then there's actually a flow designer built in here. So if I click on this Power Automate button here on the left-hand side, you could see that all I did was to create a workflow. I pressed this add flow button. And then we don't have enough time for me to create in this demo session, but if I click on it here, you could see the flow. So this is the flow that I'm calling that on select. And I passed in some information to that flow. Now, if I want to see what that flow looks like, I'm going to go and show you guys what that flow looks like. So we'll go back to our listing. This one would be under cloud flows, right? So under this team, under this app that I created for this, there is a cloud flow that sends COVID Teams message. And which one is it? I think it's this one. Okay, so this is the flow designer embedded within Teams. This is how you hook it all up. And this is when they clicked on the button. So there's a Power Apps button. When they clicked on a button, this is called an instant flow. If you want to learn about flows, come to our sessions. But this is a button. And then all I'm doing is posting a message in the channel. If I want to add something else, add an action. You know, here's all my standard connectors that I have. As soon as I go to premium here, Microsoft's going to charge me money, so I'm going to stay away from these. But these are all the standard actions. I can go to my Excel, delete a row, go to my Dataverse table that I created and access the data, send something like that to anywhere I want, SharePoint, you name it, right? So all these cool things I can invoke. So what I did here, all I want to do is post a message to a channel. Okay, and then when I was done with that, all I did was published it. So I'm going to go back to the app. And we're getting close to time. Everybody's hungry. So I'll go a little bit quicker. So when I'm done with my app, so let's say it's running, it's pretty much a small app. It has a display screen and a listing screen. I'm going to publish it. So when you're publishing it, again, because it's a Dataverse for Teams app, Microsoft is giving it for free. All I got to do is hit the little right-hand button here, and it says Publish to Teams. And it's going to ask me what teams and what team and what channel I want to publish it to. So it already knows what team. And then I go next and I say, what channel am I publishing it to? Because in Teams, there's a general channel and you can create as many channels as you want, right? So it goes and asks you what channel you want to publish it to. And then it goes and adds it as a tab on that channel. Okay, so this one's already published, so I'm not going to do it. It takes about 20 seconds. So I'm going to go to my teams. So here's my COVID FAQ team, where HR is kind of monitoring and working with all the employees. And I've got a general one. And then at the top here, I've got a tab called the COVID FAQ app. And this is where the app runs and shows to the end user. So that app that we just developed is shown here. And they can go to this app and run it. So let's say I go to this bottom one and say, hey, I need clarification. And this is, if I click on this button, I had a workflow which invoked that. And all it did was send a message to the channel, right? So did you see that notification that just happened? It's flashed on the screen, but now it's general. So if I go to the posts in the general, it invoked that workflow. So you see that's all I did was they need clarification on the question, right? And then they can go, the HR can go reply back and have a conversation, right? So that's how apps and workflows and everything works together. In the last few minutes, I want to show you a chatbot too. We can do this all using a chatbot. So I will go to, you can either do this from Power Apps here, or you can do this, go to this Power Virtual Agents app too. This is all part of Dataverse for Teams. So what this does is make it really easy to do chatbots. So how many people are you guys are in IT and answering the same dumb questions over and over? You know, how do I reset my email, or you know, how come my Word's not opening? Why not have like a bot answer those questions, right? If you have those listed on a website or something. So that's like a scenario that it's really common for organizations. Question. So Power Apps, this what I'm showing you today is free with your Microsoft Teams. If you have Microsoft Teams licensing, everything is free. However, if you want to take it outside of Teams, then you got to pay Microsoft extra licensing. It all works the same. There's no difference. It's just you could extract it outside of Teams. You could use a lot of Office 365 capabilities like embedding within SharePoint. You can embed it in a Power Apps portal. You can embed it as a standalone app. You can use the mobile. So there's different channels you could push it to. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can talk after. Okay, so so here's a chatbot that I quickly created. And all I wanted to do here was create a chatbot that answered those types of FAQ questions. Okay, so you could actually, when Eric was talking last, there's these things called topics as part of chatbots. And I'm not going to go into the topics, but I'm going to show you how easy it is to create these chatbots. So all I want to do is I can point to the data that's in my Dataverse table that I created. But in this example, I just want to show you a cool piece of functionality. Here, I'm going to use this suggest topics capability. Right? So instead of, I have a URL right here. That's not the one. Here it is. This is the URL where I just Googled it and found questions and answers. And if I just copy that URL and go to this suggest topics button, I click on this and press the add button and start. What it's doing is it's intelligently going through that web page that all my FAQs are at and pulling them in as topics to be able to answer those when a user asks those types of questions. So it's smart enough that it's going to, and it's all using natural language. So it'll find a question, like if somebody, like it says here, do I need a COVID-19 vaccine booster? If you put need COVID, need booster, or need vaccine, it'll intelligently figure out what question the person's trying to ask because it all ties into Azure Cognitive Services in the backend, right? So, and then once they're suggested, you go and decide, yeah, you know what, this one is good. I got it from the web page. I'm going to add it to my regular topics. And behind the scenes, it does this. Okay. And the cool thing about this is that right on the fly, as I'm going with this, I could also test my bot. So let's ask that question. Do I, what was the question that we added? Do I need a booster, right? So do I need a booster? Right, so as I'm testing it, you're actually, as I'm building it, you're actually testing it as you go along. And you see, it just pulled up the answer that the website sucked it. Right, so you see how easy it is to just point to those data sources and build these chatbots. And then how it works on the back end, you know, when you're developing it, you're going to the designer there. And so, for example, if I go to this one that we just talked about, and this is where you create your topics and your trigger phrases. And we've got a whole lesson on the idiosyncrasies on what you need to think about when you're creating these trigger phrases and all that. And then what you could do is, let's say that I wanted to do something at the bottom here. I want to invoke a flow. You know, this I've already done one as a test just to show you guys, but you could just click here, and I want to call an action and call a workflow or create a flow. And in that flow, that tables that I just called and created, or a file from my SharePoint, I create a flow that gets that data and renders it to the user. Now, as long as it's all within Teams, Microsoft is okay. But if you have to go to your ERP or SAP or your CRM, then Microsoft is going to charge you extra premium licensing. But this is kind of what we did here. And then when you're done with your bot, all you're doing is pressing the publish button. So, and there's a publish button for each topic, right? There's a publish button, and you point to the team. It's already pointed to the team. And then for the sake of arguments, I've already deployed it here. So if I want to ask something to the bot, all you got to do here is say at COVID FAQ bot chatbot, do I need a booster? So right here, if you can, the end user has access to this team, they're going to be interacting with the bot themselves to get the question answered. And then there was a workflow that I just quickly showed you that I added that just posted that somebody posted a question, right? So that kind of shows you the power of creating your own tables and databases and creating your own workflows all within this small ecosystem that's free with your Microsoft 365 licensing. So I think we're at time, but does anybody have any questions? This demo is probably everywhere. This one specifically, I just did it last night. So, but there's these types of demos anywhere. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, can you create well, that's the purpose of this. You're creating intelligent chatbots within Power Automate. Within Power Virtual Agents by creating these user topics, and based on the question, you're giving them. Like I only showed you the tip of the iceberg, right? I just showed you a small bit, but that's the whole purpose of this. If you want to connect to your ERP or any more advanced scenarios, or based on, like, it's intelligent, it knows colors, it knows states, it knows these things called entities, and highly advise you come to the Power Virtual Agents in a day, and you'll see all the intelligence that's built into this, right? And then if you're a developer, there's these things called bot framework skills that are all hosted in Azure, and you can. That's if you need to extend it even further, then you basically you tell Power Virtual Agents to use these bot skills as part of that. Just keep on adding it, and then you're gonna have to press that suggest topics button. But then there's behind the scenes, there's way of automatically it kind of doing that. Yeah. So when you go to the suggest topics button, it won't actually use the topic until you actually say, yeah, use this topic. URL. Yes. There's this thing called Q&A Maker, which allows you to use an Excel file, a Word document. Right now, it's just a URL, but Microsoft is probably going to enable that for a lot more. There's, let me see if I could demo that. So there's a whole, in our Power Virtual Agents in a day, there's a whole analytics component to your bot. So let's go here and metrics. So you can see the success of, when things were passed off to your help desk or another department. Did I answer your question? All the metrics are built in there. So if I go and edit this one, there's a whole metrics capability that's built in to Power Virtual Agents as well. So because the whole idea is you want to see what things are not being answered, and so you can improve upon it. So on the left-hand side, you look at the analytics, and this a summary topic triggering what is the customer satisfaction, how many people got dropped, right? All of this stuff, right? So this is all built in. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.